my truck.
Okay.
Back directly, you stand right over here.
You want me here?
You'll be
Try
here.
to get him.
You'll be here.
Okay. All right, so you want me about right here?
Yep. And there, use your right hand.
Okay.
Nah, it's been plugged in all morning, so it should be good. Yeah, no. It's at 85. Oh, you don't come in this morning. You didn't come in this morning. Yeah. I didn't know. Sometimes to the family.
Yeah, I've got a program.
Yeah, like
400 yards away.
right.
Well, the lighting didn't work. Well, we weren't getting any signal at all. Do it. We need a bigger mic five. Okay, you tried to reach me? Yeah, yeah. It doesn't seem like it's gonna start any time or, well, let me look out there 1 second.
Can you turn just a minute? Just turn your camera a little bit more. Thanks. Thanks.
Oh, Ricky, can you get a shot that cuts out the mug? So it could be the podium or something.
Yeah, pretty much.
Nothing detail.
Yeah, very subtle detail.
It's like, we're not gonna use, common stands or whatever, we're gonna do time drawing.
This is not a thing. You guys aren't even saying 13.
They used to like sign out like babies, and now it's like don't do that.
You think?
I'm not complaining. Yes.
Sorry about it, saying that for like 20 minutes doing on stage, like, different things.
It's only the end.
Okay, it's about to start.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good, Alan.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Minutes here.
It's been good, Joel.
Thank you. First degree murder. Marion on Curtis. Mark is walking in. Yeah, they're about to walk in right now. They're walking in right now.
I don't know, thank you.
Alan. Morning, sir.
Yeah, I think he's coming in now. The gentleman is right now. Hold on. Yeah. No, it's standing by. So when you get a shirt, I'll just stay on, stay on with this for a few seconds here. How are you, sir? Hold on, stand by, I'll let you know when they're walking in. They won't, go back out for walking in. I'm right here at the door, ready to come walk in. You want to see the screenshot of this, okay. Okay. They got 3 suspects.
Just put it on that waffle board.
Is it already over there?
Yeah, you want to do that again.
Still waiting for sure who is coming in. Stand by. Bear with me. Yeah.
good morning, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Bloom, the Public Information Director here at the Sheriff's Office, and I'd like to thank you for coming. I know we're delayed a little bit, just allowing time for more media to get here that had requested that, so appreciate your patience. At this time, I'd like to introduce Sheriff Billy Woods, Sheriff of Marion County, and some of the team from our investigative team.
First of all, I appreciate everybody being here. We're here for two reasons, because of a very extremely tragic incident that has occurred, but on the other side of the coin, a conclusion to that tragedy. As all of you are well aware, last Thursday, March 30th, we received a call near Forest Lakes Park, where our first victim, Layla Silvernail, was located suffering from a gunshot wound. She would later succumb to her injuries. The following morning, we responded to a location about a half a mile away and located a second victim deceased on the side of the road from an apparent gunshot wound. Then on Saturday, April 1st, my deputies located Layla's car abandoned and partially submerged in a pond about 9 miles from the location where she was found. My investigators located the third victim inside of the car. And I'll go ahead and tell you, because you've been asking me for specific details. She was located in the trunk. Now, I want to clear up before we get into those details, based on the interviews, digital evidence from her phone, she was there of her own free will. Now, I'm going to start off by thanking all of the entities. If there's ever a true example of law enforcement, communities coming together, and a almost perfect collaboration to come to a conclusion in a week on a triple homicide, is truly amazing. Those entities include the FBI, FDLE, U.S. Marshal's Office, and in my opinion, probably the best state attorney in the state of Florida for the 5th Judicial Circuit, Bill Gladson's assistant state attorneys. OPD, my deputies, detectives, forensic professionals, and our citizens, who are truly amazing. Now, this one's going to come a shock to you. That includes you, the media. You helped us with getting information. My emotions right now are all over the place, because I am so proud of my guys and girls. I didn't do a damn thing, but they stepped up to the plate. And yes, you put information out there, and I'll admit this, you wore my ass out of interviews, you hounded me, but don't ever think I didn't use you as well to get the information I needed. Now, the investigators were able to determine that this group of juveniles were involved in committing burglaries and robberies, which they referred to as a lick. Now, although we had out there that was gang related, we have nothing specific to say that it was any rivalry or anything to such that cause. But however, each and every one of them, in some shape or form, is associated with a gang. Basically, simple terms, there is no honor among thieves. And at some point, these 3 individuals turned on our 3 victims and murdered them. 2 of them right there. They fled the scenes, but left a lot of evidence in their wake. Through the cooperation of the agencies that I previously mentioned and my office, we were able to begin compiling all of the evidence and finding these killers. Now, we were shocked and saddened by the violence, as all of my citizens, because we are shocked not only are the victims juveniles, but the murderers are juveniles as well. I know each of you in the media here and viewers out there probably heard us in law enforcement or even in community events talk about what is the problem. And I'm going to go ahead and address the first thing that I know it's going to come up. Because there are individuals out there viewing, and to include some of you media, who want to blame the one thing that has no ability or the capacity to commit the crime itself. And that's the gun. These individuals committed the crime. Now, what's the solution? I wish I could give you that answer, because this world would be a whole lot better. But the fact is, society fails it. We do not hold our juveniles accountable. We minimize their actions. And let me tell you why I say this. Last night, I had to stare into the eyes of 2 mothers. It's not their fault. Because what I saw last night was 2 mothers who are willing to give their sons everything, do everything for them, and give them their own lives. But just like you and I, no matter how much we teach them, because I am a father, I am a father, and I cannot fathom what they were going through. These mothers and mothers across this nation need all of your help. Because here's what infuriates me. I've got a particular media who has a problem with putting photos of juveniles out. Now, we do it what the law says we can do. Put these photos out. I put myself in the shoes of those mothers because I heard one of them say it. I wish I would have known what this one was doing and who they were, because my kid never would have hung out with them. And to think and believe to minimize any actions that is criminal of a juvenile is a disservice, and frankly, stupid to think. We need to hold them accountable. And then hope that we can change it. I'm not going to be able to give you everything because there is a third suspect that we were unable to locate last night. But however, you will receive, you may already have it, the probable cause affidavit that tells you the details of the events that occurred. I will tell you this. I already told you of the witness hearing the gunshots. That is when all three were killed. The suspects were in the vehicle. This individual, who is a juvenile also, is who we're looking for. Now I'm talking to the viewers. Some of you know him, you know where he is, and you need to turn him in. Now I will get him. I will find him, and justice will be completed. As you can imagine, my thoughts are all over this page right now. Fighting these type of crimes requires all of us to come together as a community. And Marion County stepped up to the plate. And we've been successful. Now I know I've forgotten something, and I'm missing something, so I'm going to open up the floor to questions.
Any type of motive given?
Mentioned it, robbery.
All be,
Sheriff Woods,
Go to her first.
I want to clarify, I know you said the suspects were in the vehicle, so are you saying all 6 were in there at one time?
Yes, ma'am.
And so, the 3 individuals, the 2 that are in custody and this person, they turned on the other 3 in the vehicle, and that's how this unfolded?
That's correct.
In the commission of a robbery of the 3 victims?
Not going to get into too many more of those details because of the third suspect.
Sheriff Wood, Ted Williams with Fox News. Did the suspects and the 3 dead teens, have you been able to determine how long they've known each other?
Short time?
Sheriff, you mentioned the gun. Do we know how the suspect got a hold of the weapon?
Car burglaries. Yeah. Ain't that right? All the gun laws we got in place didn't prevent it, did it? Neither will any new ones. Because here's the fact. The bad guy's going to get a gun no matter what law you have put in place. These juveniles shouldn't even possess a handgun. But they did. And I'll go back to you, add your question. A simple burglary, as some people will say, but I don't consider anything simple when it comes to a burglary. The law allows me, I'll plaster their face up on this page, up on my page, up on media. I will hand it out if the law allows me, because parents have the right to know who their kids are hanging out with and preventing this.
What did the suspect's parents say when you spoke with them about their arrest?
I personally didn't speak to them about the arrest. It was immediately after the interviews in which I talked to the mothers. But really, they don't have a whole lot to say. If you're a parent, put yourself in their shoes. Holy hell. Panic. I'm scared to death as a parent. Embarrassed. Ashamed. What do you think they're going to say?
Sheriff Woods, do you know if these 3 juveniles will be tried as adults?
All right, State Attorney's Office is reviewing that right now, okay? So I don't want to say yes and then you turn around no, then you'll end up calling me a liar at some point. So.
What does to kind of piggyback off that, so what does accountability look like for you? I know you talked about juveniles being held accountable for their actions.
I will refrain an awful lot on that answer to this question, to the full extent of the law. Okay, don't take me wrong. I might be hard on people, but I also have a heart. And I've already told you, I am a father. But here's the one thing my boys know. Growing up, The freaking barber had my permission to whip their asses. And not only that, when this stuff came up on TV, I pointed them. I said, you don't have to worry about the law coming after you. Full extent. Because they took a life. Are y'all comprehending that? They took a life without thought. They deserved the full extent of the law.
Had you come in contact with these teens before? Because I see the pictures. Are these mugshots from previous incidents?
I personally haven't, but have we? Minimum contact. I can tell you right now. I know somebody over here had a question.
Sure.
Andy?
Do I understand correctly that the 3 victims were an active part of crimes prior to their deaths with these 3? Is that correct?
I don't want to give too much detailed information, okay? But let me put it this way. My dad was a fireman. Always said, where there's smoke, there's fire, okay? Folks, don't ask dumbass questions. And Andy, I apologize. But really, do I have to spell it out to you? What do you think they were doing? They're associated with a gang, and I've told some of y'all in interviews, gangs don't go to church on Sunday and then preach the gospel for the next 6 days. They're gangs because they commit crimes. How simple is this idea? Where are we losing it? And I know we're going long, but this is my press conference, not yours.
Sheriff,
Yes.
If all 6 were committing crimes, do you know why the 3 turned on the other 3?
I can't divulge that. I wish I could tell you. I'll tell you when we get this one. Okay? Listen, I want to tell you everything. I really do. And since day one, I've wanted to tell you anything. They have had a leash on me like you wouldn't believe. Next. Let's get somebody new.
Do we know the timeline of the 3 victims in terms of how they were shot? Was it all at once? And then?
Hold back.
Okay.
You heard the bosses.
Yes, sir.
Do you know how they were apprehended? Were they hanging out somewhere? How were you able to catch up with them?
The one subject on the previous photo, Rob Robinson, was in custody already at the juvenile detention facility. And the Christopher Atkins, the 12-year-old, we've located him at his house yesterday after serving a search warrant.
So they weren't on the run or anything. Were they even surprised to even see you show up?
Yes, they were very surprised we showed up.
Are you able to make any statements as to what they said?
I'll leave that to the sheriff.
No, you'll get that eventually. We told you he was in DJJ. He was arrested by OPD the next morning after the murder.
What were the charges on that?
An affray at the school. Oh, that's what I call a light bulb coming on right there. Remember I just talked about minimizing and holding students accountable? Our school districts, not just here, I'm not going to point out just mine, school districts across this state and across this nation need to quit minimizing the actions of their students. Hold them accountable. That's where the failure is.
Do we know where the last suspect was seen?
We're going to hold that one.
Did all 3 have guns, or was it just one gun? And which one pulled the trigger? Do we know that at this point?
All right. Some of that I'm not going to answer.
Okay.
Some of it I will. The one I will is the 2 confessed to shooting our 3rd victim in the truck.
How many guns were involved?
I'm not going to answer that one. I appreciate your questions. You wouldn't be doing your job if you didn't ask. Any others?
Sheriff, is the 3rd suspect, does the public need to worry about him?
No, the community doesn't need to worry about him outside of, I want them to find him. That's what they need to worry about, is locating it for me. And they do. You ain't ever watched my Wanted by Woods Wednesday? That's successful, and they find them. I'll allow one more.
Are these juveniles all students at the same school?
No. All righty, thank you.
We'll be sending out probable cause affidavits to the media, and also very, very basic press release to you, so you have some more details in writing.
You have these photos as well?
Right over here, Sheriff.
Yes, we will have these photos available to you. We'll send those out.
Sheriff, this is some good police work on the part of your department.
Thank you.
You said that the FBI, that the U.S. Marshal Service, and local police were involved.
That is correct, along with FDLE, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
Can you tell us how much pressure was actually on you, Sheriff, in your department?
An enormous amount of pressure. I mean, what do you expect? We got 3 juveniles that were killed. And knowing what the information which we had, knowing that I had 3 juveniles as the suspect, it's an enormous load on the shoulders of not just me, but them. Because they know what their jobs are, and they're damn good, okay? They're good.
Did they work 24 hours a day to try to resolve these murders?
They have probably had less than 12 hours of sleep since this occurred, each of them.
Physical evidence, do you have, or let's say, any video showing that these 3 are suspects together?
That one I'm not going to divulge at the moment.
What would you say to parents out there? I heard you sure speak about guns, and that guns are really not the problem, that it's the individual. What would you say to parents out here in America when it pertains to their juveniles?
You know, like I told you in the press conference here, these 2 parents were exceptional, and it broke my heart to be before them. But the majority of the time when we're dealing with juveniles, parents are, well, they're not being parents. They want to be best friends. Don't be a best friend. Be a parent. You're not doing any good to your kid. Listen, go search their room. You know, I will say this, the mothers were shocked that their kids even had a weapon. You know, obviously we can't be everywhere with our kids. I wish I could. I wish I could be with them every day, protect them, keep them from harm, keep the evil out, but don't short it.
Well, you have 3 suspects. How early on in the investigation would you say that you were on to these 3 suspects?
Probably within 24 hours, we had enough information to lead us in that direction.
When you say enough information, from what you told us earlier, Sheriff Woods, is that the public assisted you tremendously. Can you kind of tell us more about that?
I can elaborate a little, because obviously a lot of tips are anonymous, and they don't want to give up information, but when they make phone calls, they tell us, and we have, all law enforcement has our individuals that call us to give us info, to help us out in cases, okay? And that's what happened. And the community stepped up, even the small ones, you know, saying that I saw the car here, and I mentioned this on other interviews. Those were invaluable to the success of this case.
Now, you said that there was physical evidence. Was there physical evidence left at all 3 crime scenes? Because we know that Layla was shot on Thursday, and then we know that they found the body of a teenage boy on Friday, and then Saturday they found another body of the teenage girl in the car that Layla had been driving. Was there physical evidence at the scene?
Yes, there's physical evidence all over. I already mentioned that we have an abundance of physical evidence. And let me clarify, because I don't want your viewers to misunderstand what's being said. Although the bodies were found in 3 different locations, does not mean they were murdered at each of those locations. Because the evidence, and I already told you in the press conference, our first caller heard the gunshots. That is when the murders occurred, right then and there. There's no other reports, there's no other tips that there's any other gunshots during this process. The fact is this is where the bodies were dumped.
So, if I'm clear on this, where Layla was found by the dumpster, or do you believe that the shootings took place there and that the shooters left in Layla's car, and Layla's car eventually wound up in that creek?
I'm going to retain some of that. I'm not going to answer it, again, because we got a third suspect. There's information that we have, we know, and then we know that this suspect is going to know. And I apologize because you had made that long, and I forgot the last half of that question at the pond. But I'd rather not answer all of it right now, okay?
Well, Chief, I think that the nation owes you a debt, and your men and women a debt of gratitude of bringing what you have now as suspects to justice. Is there anything else that you would like to tell us?
That's a difficult question. Thank you. Thank you to everybody, and that includes you.
You know, Sheriff Woods, we can tell this is very, very emotional for you, and you can tell that it's very personal. Can you tell us why?
This is my home. These are kids. It's a father who, what father out here wouldn't bother you? You know, my life, my 33 years is dedicated to protecting people. My life has been dedicated to finding justice for people. Sometimes we can get there, sometimes we can't. And when people look to you, it breaks your heart sometimes. It's probably the best way I can tell you.
Finally, I'd like to ask you, initially, the community believed maybe that there was a serial murder out there. And you immediately came forward and said, no, I don't believe it's a serial killer that's out there. At the time that you made those statements saying that you didn't believe it was a serial killer, had you already had information that led you away from the belief that a serial killer was involved?
Yes, I knew. All of us in law enforcement. You know, there are times that we don't know. I'm not going to tell you it's every incident, but there's times where we have zero information because we've had cases where nobody comes forward and talks to us. And all we have is what's laying in front of us, and even that evidence doesn't point us in a direction. But I had the information. When I told you it is not a serial killer, at that moment I knew without a shadow of a doubt it was not a serial killer.
Chief, once again, I just want to thank you for this interview and for all that you and your department have done.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sheriff, can I add, just one quick question? I know you interviewed a number of persons of interest. How many? You know, were these suspects any of those persons of interest that you questioned?
Well, all of them were our persons of interest, these three, okay? And to answer your question, I don't know.
Okay.
That's a little deeper than what I know.
Sure.
Okay.
Quick question, just to clarify, I know we went over, they were all six in the car. Pretty much they shot them and just dropped them off at these different locations, the victims?
That is correct.
Sheriff, did your investigations into this reveal any gang activity out there? Do you feel there's more gang activity out there?
We all have gang activity. It's always going on in the room. And if any CEO, any chief, sheriff denies it, they're foolish, to be frank with you. And to the level and to the scale of what a gang is. You know, a little while ago, and I wasn't going to say anything, and I'm not going to say the media outlet's name. You know, when you get experts on camera, their ignorance, they think they're experts, they know everything.
I'm not really.
And one of you had an expert. And when I watched that, it infuriated me. Because when they're talking, they have no clue of what we have. What I call a gang, hybrid gang, wannabe gang, neighborhood gang. They may call it something else. You call it a pond, I call it a lake. It's still a body of water. What freaking difference does it make what it's called? Now, thankfully, the ignorance of that expert on one of you helped me. You want to know how? The little shiny object. While eyes were diverted in a particular direction, suspects thinks we don't know anything when we know a whole lot. So thank you, one, for the ignorance of that expert and their stupidity. Because one thing you won't ever see me do when I'm done, ain't none of y'all hiring me. I ain't giving my opinion for anything after this, except I'm going to enjoy life.
I'm gonna set him up, okay, fine.
Quick question. You mentioned holding juveniles accountable via community schools. How else can you hold these juveniles accountable?
We all can. Don't minimize their actions. You know, school districts, they want to divert them into programs instead of calling out. The courts, minimizing the actions of what they've done, their criminal activity. Hold them accountable. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't misquote me. I'm not talking about stealing a piece of bubble gum or the schoolyard fight. Been there, done that, okay? Been on a schoolyard fight. I know what it looks like. I know what it is. I'm talking about the ones that actually are criminals. We all need to. Courts, school districts, quit hiding it. Okay? Quit hiding the sin. That's what you're doing. And it's the old theory, they're juveniles. You and I were young. We teach these juveniles of what to be, what to think, what to do. We condition them. So if I say they do something wrong, and oh, don't do that again. They do it wrong again. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that.
What did you say?
What are you doing? You're conditioning them to say, oh, nothing's going to happen to me. I'm not going to go to jail. I'm not going to get time.
Testing 1, 2, testing 1, 2.
It's okay. I can get away with it.
Okay, my
No.
mind is not on
You hold them accountable, just like I held my sons accountable the first time. They knew that they did wrong.
All right, hold on.
And these are the consequences that you're
trying to
going to
get
get.
it together.
And don't get me wrong, I love my boys. You harm my boy, I'll come after you like you wouldn't believe.
So now.
Okay.
I hope I answered your question.
All right, can you hear me now?
Thank you. There you go.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Can you hear me now?
Quick question, were the kids remorseful when you were talking to them? Would they cry, were they sorry what they did, or they just?
My detectives ain't here, so I'm gonna take a leap of faith here. Yeah, they cried. They're juveniles.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear
I
you.
would've, yeah. The 12-year-old?
That's better.
But the mamas did too. The mamas. Best way to describe it, they didn't know what to think. I know it was shame. Shame. Because their boys committed a murder. But yeah,
And all the teens are from Marion
Got
County,
it.
including the
Very
suspects.
well.
that is correct.
Do they have siblings too, or no, or?
I'm not going to divulge that.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you. Note about everybody in the line. And got an arm workout.
I know, yeah. Yesterday was shoulders and back. I'm feeling it.
I gotta work on the other arm.
I know, right? Yeah, I tried to switch it, but he didn't say much on the other arm. All right, well, there we go. A lot of information.
Got it?
Yeah, that was my first sheriff.
Good.
I mean, we can.